everyone, this is TN Inside. Let's begin by reading today's scripture passage from the book of Jeremiah, chapters 20 to 22. In today's explainer, we've got 6 key areas to cover. We'll start with 1, the prophet's deepest agony. Then move to 2, terror on every side. After that, 3, the fall of King Zedekiah. 4, the illusion of the fortress. 5, righteous versus corrupt kings. And finally, 6, the broken signet ring. Let's dive right in. Section 1. The prophet's deepest agony. To really get where Jeremiah is mentally and emotionally right now, we have to look at what just happened to him. He was literally beaten and locked in the stocks by a guy named Pashur, who is the chief officer of the temple. I mean, imagine that kind of public humiliation. It takes a massive toll on a person. Jeremiah is completely exhausted. He's out there sharing his message, getting mocked all day long, and he actually tries to convince himself to just quit. He tells himself, I'm not going to speak the Lord's word anymore. But here's the catch. Despite being totally drained, he is driven by this unquenchable internal fire. He describes it as a consuming flame locked deep inside his bones. It's an overwhelming conviction that he simply cannot hold back, no matter how much he wants to. That even with that incredible fire, we are seeing a prophet pushed to his absolute breaking point. The emotional weight of his mission is just incredibly heavy. His suffering and sorrow gets so intense that he literally begins to curse the day he was born. He's asking, why do I have to endure all this sadness and shame? He actually wishes he had never been born at all, or that he had just died right at birth. It is a staggering, raw look at the real human cost of having to deliver difficult truths. All right, moving on to section 2, terror on every side. Now, what's really fascinating here is the stark, kind of ironic contrast in these names. Jeremiah takes Pashur, the very temple officer who beat him, whose name literally translates to all is well, and renames him Magor Masabib, which means terror on every side. And this isn't just a petty insult, right? It is a dark foreshadowing. It means that because Pashur listened to and pushed all these false prophecies, the illusion that all is well is about to totally shatter. He and his entire family are going to be dragged off to Babylon to die, surrounded by absolute terror as God's judgment finally falls on Judah. And that brings us to section 3, the fall of King Zedekiah. So here the narrative shifts over to the desperate royal leadership. King Zedekiah sees this massive threat coming, so he sends Pashur and Zephaniah the priest over to ask Jeremiah to pray for them, hoping for a bailout. But instead of comfort, Jeremiah delivers a horrifying prophecy. Babylon's king Nebuchadnezzar is coming, bringing sword, famine, and pestilence. Fast forward to 586 BC, and that exact chilling prophecy is fulfilled to the letter. When the Babylonian army besieges Jerusalem, King Zedekiah tries to make a run for it under the cover of darkness, but he's captured and dragged before the king of Babylon. And his punishment is just brutal. He is forced to watch his own sons be executed right in front of him. Immediately after that, his eyes are gouged out. He's bound in chains and rots in a Babylonian prison until the day he dies. Next up, section 4, the illusion of the fortress. To really understand how this happened, we need to look at the dangerous psychological mindset that completely blinded the people to this catastrophe. You see, Jerusalem wasn't just any regular city. It was built right on the solid rock of Mount Zion, overlooking these deep valleys. This geographical setup basically created a massive natural fortress. Because of this, the people living there developed a profound but completely false sense of total security. They thought they were literally untouchable. So the crucial takeaway here is their pure arrogance. They looked at their solid rock walls and deep valleys and thought, who could possibly oppose us? But God flips the script. He declares himself to be their adversary. He warns them that because they failed to administer justice, because they refused to rescue the oppressed from their oppressors, he is going to personally punish them and set their surroundings ablaze. Basically, their physical fortress meant absolutely nothing if their spiritual foundation was entirely corrupt. That leads us perfectly into section 5, righteous versus corrupt kings. Here, the Lord issues a super stark warning directly to the royal house. The throne of David will only endure if they act justly, period. That means actively protecting the foreigner, the widow, and the orphan, putting an end to innocent bloodshed, and totally dropping the worship of other gods. To really grasp what was at stake, let's compare 2 totally different paths. On one hand, you've got King Josiah. He was a rare, righteous king. And when he tragically died in the Battle of Megiddo, fighting Pharaoh Necho, the people deeply, deeply mourned his loss. But on the other hand, we have his son, King Jehoiakim, who took a completely different road. While another one of Josiah's sons, Shallum, dies in captivity, Jehoiakim just gets entirely consumed by his own greed and corruption. Because Jehoiakim corruptly built these massive houses and fancy upper rooms using unpaid labor, completely ignoring the righteous, just ways of his father, his fate is a lot different. The prophecy lays it out. His death will not be mourned at all. No one's going to miss him. Instead, because of his immense greed and injustice, he's going to be literally discarded and treated like a dead donkey. It is such a striking, vivid image of how corruption just entirely strips away all honor.
And finally, Section 6, the broken signet ring.
To really grasp the ultimate tragic loss of royal authority here, we have to look at Jehoiakim's son, Jeconiah, also known as Jehoiachin. Historically, the king of Judah was symbolically like a signet ring on God's right hand. If you think about it, it's highly authoritative, kind of like the precious jade seal of the Hosean dynasty in Korea. It represented God's chosen people and carried immense power. But because of their constant rebellion, God vows to tear this ring right off his hand and hand it directly over to Nebuchadnezzar. And the fallout of tearing off this ring is just devastating. Jeconiah and his mother are exiled to a foreign land, and they'll never see their home again. But what's even worse for a royal line, God declares that Jeconiah will be recorded as a childless man. Now, that doesn't mean he didn't have biological kids, but rather that no descendant of his will ever successfully sit on the throne of David to rule Judah again. The royal lineage of power is definitively, permanently broken. But interestingly enough, the historical narrative doesn't end in complete pitch-black darkness. Despite this incredibly heavy curse, we get to see a really complex layer of God's sovereignty mixed right into the judgment. Years later, during the second Babylonian exile, Jeconiah was actually released from prison. He was treated well and even given a seat of honor by King Evil-Merodach of Babylon. It's this small, surprising glimmer of mercy right in the middle of the severe consequences of a totally shattered kingdom. So, as we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with one final thought. The book of Jeremiah shows us the incredibly heavy historical cost of corrupt leadership and of turning a blind eye to injustice. It really makes us stop and ask ourselves, are we, kind of like the ancient inhabitants of Jerusalem, relying on a false sense of security? Are we putting all our trust in our own modern-day fortresses and ignoring difficult truths? Or are we actually listening and acting with justice? Take a moment to reflect on that. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to exploring our next topic with you.